Chapter 8. Mo was sitting on the living room rug scratching an itch behind his left ear. That morning, after a long walk, the tall woman had brought him home. After filling Mo's bowl with fresh water, she'd given him a rawhide knot and left, closing the door behind her. There were strangers all around, all women. They clucked and cackled like a bunch of chickens, but at least they were quieter than the men who had been showing up every day for weeks with their noisy tools. At that pounding and buzzing had made Mo want to throw back his head and howl. When he and the tall woman had lived in the cabin beside the river, life had been more peaceful. The only sounds Mo heard were the birds singing and the wind in the trees at night. He had enjoyed chasing grasshoppers and rolling in the patch of sweet clover near his favorite shade tree. He'd spent many happy hours burying soup bones under that tree. By now, the dopey old beagle down the road had probably come and dug them all up. The tall woman seemed happier since the move. She hummed all the time, but Mo hadn't made up his mind yet about the new place. He felt nervous and on edge all the time now, as if something were about to happen. But what? It didn't help matters that there was a cat hanging around. Mo heard him yowling in the middle of the night, and even though Mo barked whenever the big orange cat showed himself, the cat had still left his musky scent all over the yard. Mo hated the smell of cat even more than he hated getting a bath. Fortunately, the tall woman had been too busy lately to think about bathing Mo or clipping his nails, another thing he hated. Mo would be vigilant. Eventually the cat would get cocky the way cats always did, and Mo would chase him up a tree and show him who was boss. Mo chewed on the rawhide knot for a while, and when he grew tired of that, he curled up on the couch to take a nap. He had just closed his eyes when he heard someone open the door. The step was unfamiliar, lighter and quicker than the tall woman's. A minute later, a little girl peeked around the corner. She had long yellow hair, and when she tipped back her head and laughed, Mo's breath quickened and his heart began to race. It was her, the girl from his dream. Mo knew what was going to happen next. She would run to him and throw her arms around his neck, but instead, to his surprise, the girl skipped across the room and patted him gently on the head. Her fingers were sticky and smelled of root beer, and she was shorter and rounder than she was supposed to be. She laughed again, then turned and skipped away. Mo didn't bother to follow. She wasn't his girl. She wasn't his girl at all.